What's up guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Nurse Dre. I'm actually a nurse and I just happen to love true crime. If you love true crime and naturopathy, like homeopathic medicine, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Today we're talking about Elizabeth Wettfauler, the most notorious woman serial killer in Canada in all time. And she was a nurse as well, and so that's why I'm so interested in this case. It's really crazy. You know, there's cases about women, or not even women, just nurses, or I've heard about like respiratory therapists and stuff that will do mercy killings in hospitals and hospice, you know, long-term care facilities. And you know, as a nurse in a long-term care facility right now, I do understand the idea of human, I guess, euthanization. That's a horrible term for it, but like, you know, when your dog gets sick, you go ahead and put them down if they can't be treated, you know, and some people really do believe that should be a thing for humans as well. But of course it's not legal at this time, but people have done it in the past, and it really intrigues me why these people think that they can just be God and take these people's lives into their own hands and be like, oh, yep, it's time for you to go. Bye. You know, I mean, it's not fair to these people. These people need every minute they can get. They want every minute they can get, and they're counting death down by the day. And for you to take it suddenly, you know, selfishly in your own way is sick. So yeah, we're talking about Elizabeth. Elizabeth was born Beth Parker. I think it was Parker. Yeah, she was born Beth in 1967 in Woodstock, Ontario, Canada. Now, Beth, like in high school, she played trombone for the high school band. She was the goalie for the field hockey team, and people would call her shy, awkward, and that she didn't really fit in with any particular niche or crowd. You know what I mean? Like, you've got the preps and you've got the emos and all that. She didn't really fit in with anybody, and so she was kind of awkward. So she was raised in a very Baptist Christian home. Her parents were very devout Christians, and as a teenager she realized that she was bisexual. She did like men, but she still thought girls were, you know, beautiful and sexy too, and she was interested in it and interested in her sexuality. And I think all of us do that in our teen years, you know. So for her to come up with this and realize it so early in life is a good thing, but it wasn't good for her parents, because at one point she was actually attending a gay-friendly church, and she was attending it with a girlfriend, and her father found out about this, and he went to the church and yanked her up out of there, and he put her in a pray the gay away camp, where here she said she had feelings of self-doubt, self-hatred. You know, I guess she was very confused and didn't really know where she fit in the world, didn't really know what she was supposed to be sexually, because she was into both men and women, and with her family, you know, rejecting this idea that she was bisexual, putting her in camps. Like, you can actually pray the gay away. You can't do that, guys. Come on. That's crazy. I can't believe there's actually a camp for that. Anyways, so she went on to graduate from the London Baptist Bible School with a degree in religious education counseling. And she had a couple of jobs, you know, for this. It was okay, but she did realize very soon that this degree was not going to sustain her lifestyle the way she wanted to live financially. She needed something that was going to pay a little bit better. So she went back to school and she went on to get a nursing degree from Conestoga College in 1995. And very soon after, she fell in love with a man, and she got married to a man named Donnie Wettfauler, taking on the name Wettfauler, and the marriage didn't last very long. At this time, she was diagnosed with bipolar. I think it was around this time that she started hearing voices, but they never diagnosed her with schizophrenia or anything in that sort of psychological nature, you know, because usually when you hear voices, they give you some other diagnosis, and they didn't. They just diagnosed her with bipolar. But again, this was, you know, 20-something years ago, so psychology is really, you know, had major leaps and bounds in the last decade. So I'm sure she may have been misdiagnosed, we don't know, but she ended up getting her nursing license suspended in this time as well. She was caught stealing narcotics like pain medication, and she was using them on herself, and so her nursing license was suspended. So she got very depressed. She started to get online, and she started developing relationships, like love relationships with other women. And this is around the time when her husband found out about it. When her husband found out about it, he was like, "That's sick, we're done." He had no tolerance for it whatsoever, and he divorced her immediately. So she fell into a deeper depression. However, she found someone that she actually fell in love with, and her name was Sheila Andrews. So some reports say that she did move in with Sheila Andrews, but then I also saw an interview where Sheila Andrews said that when they first met at the hotel, they spent the night together, and when she woke up in the morning, she realized that she did not want to be with Elizabeth. But then there's reports that say that she moved in with her for a short period of time, and Sheila's mother was actually living with them as well, and she was very elderly and needed some help. And Sheila says that at this time Elizabeth was very childish. She would throw temper tantrums when she didn't get her way, and she refused to assist in taking care of Sheila's elderly mother when she needed help, which was very weird because when you're a nurse, you want to help people. It's like for me, it was a calling from God, a mission. But I mean, I just always want to help people, and it doesn't matter if it's my family, your family, I don't care. I see them all as my family, and anything you need, I mean, anything, I will do for you because, you know, you lived a whole life, and it's time for other people to take care of you when you need it. And so I think that people deserve that. And so for Sheila to just flat out refuse to help taking care of Sheila's mother is ridiculous. I don't think Elizabeth ever deserved to be a nurse, to be honest with you. It's disgusting what comes up next. So Sheila got her nursing license back in 1997, and in 97 she started working for a nursing home named Karissa Care. This nursing home had her working on the night shift, and Elizabeth is said to have loved this. She loved to be in a leadership position because as the nurse, she was in charge of all of the, CNAs and other people that worked in the building. So she was the head honcho on night shift, and she loved it. This is when she started taking that power trip to a completely other level. At one point, she tried to kill 2 women, and these 2 women survived, but they ended up dying later. So they did connect her to those deaths. So the first person that she actively murdered successfully was Jim Willcox. He was a World War II veteran, a great-grandfather. He was loved by his entire family, especially his daughters. And they had just put him in there because his memory was going. He had some form of dementia. And Elizabeth, one night, took it into her own hands, and she drew up a syringe of insulin, a lot of insulin. She injected Jim Willcox with the insulin, and an hour later he was found dead in his bed. The family had no idea what had happened because he was fine. They didn't expect him to die. It was very sudden, but the nursing home told them, he was old, he died in his sleep, it was possibly a heart attack, and absolutely no autopsy was performed. Now, this is normal in nursing homes, let me tell you, because people are so old and they die unexpectedly. I have had people who are on hospice ready and willing to die, and they live for 10 years or so, and then other people who are very healthy in their 70s or something, very young and healthy and can walk, and all of a sudden pass away and having a heart attack in their sleep or whatever. It happens, and we don't do autopsies on people. It's not normal at all to do autopsies. So no autopsy was performed on Jim Willcox. Now, let's talk about insulin. Insulin is a byproduct of the body that you actually make in your body. It comes from the pancreas, and when you have a disease called diabetes mellitus, you don't make enough insulin in your body to keep your blood sugar level down, and insulin will bring your blood sugar levels down and make sure that you process glucose and other sugars through your kidneys correctly. But when you're diabetic, you can't do that. So we keep in our medication carts insulin, and that insulin is injected in very small amounts into people, like right before breakfast, lunch, and dinner, at nighttime, stuff like that, to make sure that their insulin level is even throughout the day and their glucose level is even throughout the day. Because when your glucose level rises so high and you don't do anything about it, you don't take your insulin, it causes a crap load of problems. Not only could you go into ketoacidosis, which is very scary, it makes, you end up in the hospital in ICU, it's a very serious condition, but also when you don't take care of your insulin and your sugar levels, you will develop things like problems with your feet, like you can't feel your feet, your eyesight will go, feeling in your hand, like tingling and stuff will appear. People will have to get legs amputated, they'll go blind. I mean, a whole host of problems can go wrong when you don't take the right amount of insulin. But when you are not a diabetic, which Jim Willcox was not a diabetic, his body made the correct amount of insulin for his body. He was not prescribed the medicine. She knew that if she gave him an overdose of insulin, he would die. And she did. She gave him a huge amount of insulin while he was laying there in bed. He didn't even notice it because the needles are tiny. And he passed away. His family was devastated. 2 days before Christmas that year, in 2007, Maurice Granite died in his sleep as well on the night shift while Elizabeth was working. He was found in bed, he had trouble breathing, and then all of a sudden passed away. No autopsy was performed, family was notified, it was possibly a heart attack or a stroke. No autopsy. Again, this is around the time when Elizabeth got smart and thank God for us, she started posting some raunchy ass shit online. She went on this website and she started posting these crazy ass poems. Let me read them to you. Hold on. This poem is titled Inevitable. She was posting these on allpoem.com under the name Betty Weston. So inevitable goes like this. As it soothingly pulls, it smothers her pain. Sweet stiletto so sharp, craves another cut. Obeying a call, she moves to his gut. Blade traces a line from navel to spine, grafting on rib bones, slicing intestine. End quote. Y'all, I can't. She's posting this shit online and people are dying around her. Nobody put this together. This is crazy. I mean, it goes on and on. These poems are nasty. One says, quote, heart beats then sprays as this next victim pays. Her deft dagger's bill, does it quench her craze? End quote. What the fuck? I can't. Not too long after she started posting these poems online about killing people, she had a few more victims. She used the same exact thing, the same overdose of insulin in the same exact way on the same night shift. Her victims were Gladys Mellard, Helen Matheson, Mary Zawinski, Maureen Pickering, Helen Young, and Arpad Horvat. All of them found in bed at night, dead. No autopsy. Not a single one. Now, at this same time that this is going on, there's rumors going around throughout the nursing home, through the staff, about Elizabeth. That she was coming to work intoxicated. She was found sleeping in the basement one night. I mean, they knew something was going on, and Elizabeth did too. Soon after all of this happened, her world would unravel, literally. In March 2014, she was fired, and Karissa Care claimed that they were firing her due to several medication errors and putting patients at risk. Now, when there is a medication error, because let me tell you, I probably pass 500 to 600 pills a day, okay, in a 12-hour shift. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 nurses on one shift passing out that many pills. And that's just one nursing home on one day, one shift. So the fact that there would never be a medication error ever through that many pills getting passed, thousands of pills a day, the fact that there would never be a medication error is very rare. They do happen. And when you are apprehended for a medication error, when you give somebody the wrong medication, you put them at risk to die, to have seizures, to have all kind of issues. Their blood pressure could drop. There's so many things that put the patient at risk. But mainly the thing is they will report you to the pharmacist, especially if they have a pharmacist in-house. They'll report you to him and they'll keep it on file. They won't usually go to the state or the nursing board about you unless it's happened multiple times. And when she got fired, I have a suspicion that they did go to the nursing board, Karissa Care, but They won't release anything due to personal privacy, so we don't really exactly know, but we do know this is around the time when she spiraled out of control. She began working at Meadow Park Nursing Home in London, Ontario, and I think that's where the victims, Arpad Horvath and Helen Young were. I think that's where they were. But anyway, 3 weeks after these people pass away in that nursing home, she checks herself into a drug rehab facility at Niagara Hospital for detox. She, I guess, had been stealing pain medicine again, and she was addicted. And she was depressed. She was hearing these voices. So she checks herself into detox. But that wouldn't last long. A year later, she was right back at it. She was doing temp jobs. She didn't have an actual job, but she was temping. You know, if a nursing home had somebody call out sick, she would fill in, that kind of thing. She was working at home care for people, doing that kind of stuff and being mischievous along the way. But it wasn't long. It was about a year after she had left the detox center that she started drinking alcohol again, hanging out with friends that were drinking and doing stuff that was out of character for her at the time. And so she would end up going to a neighbor of hers at one point and saying, this man's name was Mr. Hart. I don't know his first name, I'm sorry. But Mr. Hart lived next door to her. He had known her since she was like 10 years old. Somehow they lived next door to each other at this time. And she knew that he was taking medical marijuana for back pain. And so she went to him in flat out withdrawals. And she said, can I please have some medical marijuana? I'm feeling horrible. At that time, Mr. Hart would end up saying in an interview that she just looked like she was at her wit's end and she was defeated. And she would end up the next day checking herself back into a rehab facility for detox. This detox facility was called Cam H. And while she was at Cam H, I think she was there for like a month, this is when the investigation would be sparked, because she started telling doctors that she was hearing voices. They were telling her to kill people and she was obeying. She started telling them how it was going and what happened, but charges wouldn't be filed at this time. You know, when you tell a psychiatrist that you are having issues where you have either harmed yourself, someone else, or you're thinking about harming yourself or someone else, they immediately keep you in observation and they have to alert the police. They have to. So they alerted police. And at the time, she had been texting back and forth to her neighbor, Mr. Hart, and she even admitted to him, and she told him it wasn't just one, it wasn't just two, it was several. And Mr. Hart, you know, he was like, look, you have to tell police, and when you tell police, you have to tell them their names, you have to give them the information so that they'll work with you. You need to tell the truth. So he tells police too. That sparks up the investigation. When the doctors are calling, her neighbor's calling, she's telling several people what she has done. And it's crazy that she never got caught. I mean, she got caught administering the wrong medication several times, but she never got caught. They never thought to investigate these people that passed away on her shift all the time. It's crazy. So before she's arrested, she contacts her friends back home and she says, so have the cops been lurking around asking questions about me? And her friend says, of course, yes. They've been asking all of us questions. And she says, quote, well, I love the police in uniform and they don't scare me at all. She has no respect. She has no remorse for what she has done. She does not care at all. She's taking this as a joke, honestly. I mean, when you see her in pictures, she's usually smiling. I don't think she has any regret or remorse for what she did, period. Now, police state that in order to gain more evidence for conviction, that they would like to test the bodies for the insulin that she states that she over-medicated them with. Well, the only problem with that is most of the patients were cremated, and the ones that remain full body, the insulin would have already passed through their system through death, and it would not be detectable. And what would be detectable would be a natural lying insulin, and they wouldn't be able to detect how much was in their blood. So evidence is hard to get, but they do file charges. They do arrest Elizabeth, and When talking in a police interview with the police about what had gone on, she stated that voices inside of her abdomen were telling her to kill people, and she obeyed. However, they never, I don't think till this day, have diagnosed her with any kind of split personality disorder or schizophrenia or anything, which I don't understand. But they arrest her on the charges of 4 attempted murders, 2 aggravated assaults, and 8 murders. Elizabeth would go on to plead guilty and be convicted. The extra evidence that the police were able to gather were things like from the nursing home reports where she had either stolen medication or she had misused medications on patients and jeopardized their lives. They weren't going on a whole lot here. But with her plea of guilty, it helps in the case a lot. During a police interview, she casually states that she had been sitting with these people on 12-hour shifts that were just about to die, and the cop says something along the lines, well, that must have been really hard for you. And she states, quote, "It was okay because I knew they were gonna die and it was just an opportunity to give the family rest," end quote. Give the family rest? You ruined people's lives. You actually took lives like you were God and it was your decision to do, you crazy bitch. You can't do that to people. And like I said in the beginning, there are people in the healthcare field who believe in the euthanization of people who are dying sadly. They're in a lot of pain, cancer, whatever is going on, and they think that if they want to end their life, they should be able to. But that's not the case with Elizabeth. Elizabeth really was a cold-hearted killer. She was not doing these murders or attempted murders out of any mercy. There's no mercy, remorse, or anything in her heart. She's a cold-blooded killer. She got a thrill out of watching someone's life drain out of them. One of her poems talks about how she gets a thrill of watching blood pool in the veins after a person dies. That's sick. Very sick. Now finally in 2015, Elizabeth Wettfauler would finally be convicted of all charges. 4 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and 8 first-degree murders. The judge sentenced her to, y'all listen, oh God. The judge sentenced her to life in prison with the ability of parole after 25 years. That's it. The most prolific woman serial killer in Canada, possibly in North America, and you are going to let her out after 25 years? Who the fuck hired you? He states that it could have been 75-year parole, but since she gave us the names of the victims, I'm gonna go easy on her. Are you kidding me? There could have been more. We don't know. We don't know if there's more. Simply because of the fact that the healthcare systems sometimes fail us. And it's not fair, but it happens. In the courtroom of her sentencing, she actually turns around to the families before the sentence and apologizes to all of the families for what she has done to their loved ones. But of course, nobody's going to accept that. You can't just apologize for taking someone's loved one in your own hands and taking their lives. You can't apologize for that. So of course, nobody accepted it. And the trust that it takes to put a loved one in the hands of others that you cannot see on a regular basis anymore. You can visit, but you can't live with them. You can't be with them all the time. When you put your loved one in a long-term care facility, it takes a lot of trust. And these families' trust is obviously destroyed because of this woman. They'll probably never use a long-term care facility again, and that's tragic because the majority of long-term care facilities are really good, and everyone who works there has a passion for these people, for what they're doing with these people, you know, helping them. And I just want to make one point. Sitting with someone and helping them transition from life to death while they're dying is an absolute gift from God It's the most rewarding work a nurse could do. And you took that and you turned it into a selfish, disgusting, evil, horrible situation. Now, Elizabeth would eventually, of course, be sent to a mental care facility. As far as I know, she hasn't appealed the decision of the judge. She hasn't appealed the court case, period. But somehow she ended up in a mental care facility, and the families are outraged. And they wouldn't even tell the families where she was at first. But for her to get such an easy sentencing after attempting to kill 4 people, aggravated assault to 2 people, and murdering 8 people, she's literally a serial killer. Why didn't she get back-to-back life sentences on every single one of them? And why is this just some system that we have failing us on a daily basis? The families would eventually call for an overhaul of the entire long-term care facility, and there were 2 or 3 large, like book-sized manuals that were put out there that went to every single long-term care and assisted living home in the country of Canada. And I understand it's like 216 or something like that, but they said that they couldn't blame it on a certain person, they couldn't blame it on a certain company. They didn't find any fault in the places that Elizabeth worked. So they did do an overhaul of the system, but it didn't do much. They even wanted to do, they had this brilliant idea of like wanting to, after each person dies, they would like take some blood from them and make sure it didn't have insulin or morphine or something, like high levels in it, to make sure nobody was murdered silently. And there was a really famous doctor, he was also a scientist. He said that it would actually be unreasonable because, first of all, the cost of it would not be something that insurance companies would, pay for or anything. And secondly, like I said earlier, insulin's really hard to tell the amount in your body, and it's really hard to tell whether you have synthetic insulin or human insulin in your body. I mean, it's like, it's not a really good tool. It's not a way to do it. And so that wasn't put into place. But I agree that there should be something along the lines of that in every long-term care facility, that every death should be looked at in a manner of suspicion, just to be sure. And let's talk about the big problem here. The big problem was not only Elizabeth's mental illness, it was her drug use. And to be honest, she was probably self-medicating the entire time because she was in so much pain. When you have mental illness and a drug abuse problem, they usually go hand in hand, but it's a recipe for disaster. I mean, seriously. And she tried to get help time and time again, and it just didn't work. And it's just sad that this kind of thing happens, because you should be able to trust your nurses and your doctors with your whole heart, And I just want to put it out there that the majority of nurses are in it because it's a calling for them. It's a very rewarding job, and we love you guys. We love people. We love taking care of people. This should never have happened, and I don't know what could have stopped it. But maybe the Board of Nursing for Canada should have kept her license in the beginning when all this started happening. I don't know, but it's just crazy to me that she got away with so many. And we don't even know if there's more or not, It could just be what she said. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys think that she should spend the rest of her life in prison, or do you think she should spend the rest of her life in a mental care institution? Do you guys think this is a mental illness problem, a drug problem, or do you think she's just a psychopath, which is the same thing, a mental illness? But you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think she's just pure evil, or do you think she has mental issues that need to be addressed, that need to be taken care of in a mental health institution? But here's the kicker. If she stays in that mental health institution for the rest of her life, I wonder what karma has in store for her when she's an old woman and someone has to take care of her. I wonder how she would feel if someone decided to take her life and she couldn't do anything about it. She's a helpless old woman, I'm not gonna rant forever, you guys. Thanks for sticking with me through another true crime. I really appreciate it. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button for true crime and homeopathic medications. I've got a good video on how to kick COVID in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you leave me a comment and a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.